Jumpin' In on Manx Radio.
With Howard and Chris Kane.
Hello.
Good evening.
And welcome. And here we are once again. Can you believe it? We are at the end of the year. Right at the very end of the year. I mean, it is still, of course, Saturday night. It is still 9 o'clock. It is still Jumpin' In, the best in modern and contemporary jazz. But looking back at the second half of 2021.
In fact, it's the start of a new year, H, not the end of an old one. Should old acquaintance be rekindled quite so soon in the new year? Well, of course. We jump feet first into 2022, and good riddance to 21, you might say. But let's just hope better things do come this year. But not until we polished off, as you say, some more of last year. So,
Ever the optimist.
With a surprisingly few turkeys in what has been the star on the top of your tree this year, H.
Well, there's been so much stuff I really wouldn't know where to start. Some of the stuff, I confess, I haven't really fully absorbed all the albums, but we will be looking at a bit of Marcin Wasilewski and his love of doing covers. I think we will have a little bit of the wonderful Kathleen Winfeld, who we really enjoyed with her big band. And you know what? I think I might have a special guest with a bit of choice as well.
And you know, as we drag, in fact, the last quarter of last year into this year's shows, for me, well, rambling, blue and frankly terrified. But to start, here's Fabio Mantwell and an orchestra with Sasa Ndio Sasa, which rather aptly means now. It is now.
Says like a pro.
Maisha yako mikononi mwako sasa, ya muli menyewe. Sasa ndio sasa, hakuna muda mwingine. Kesho na jana, sawa tufurahie. Kila tujiulize, tufanye nini na sasa. Itambue wewe mwenyewe, sasa ndio sasa. Sasa ndio sasa, hakuna muda mwingine. Kesho na jana, sawa tufurahie. Kila tujiulize, tufanye nini na sasa. Itambue wewe mwenyewe, sasa
Sasa and Dio Sasa, taken from Fabio Mantwell and her orchestra's debut release, Emperience, a fascinating album. This, for the 27-year-old German composer, singer and saxophonist, brings together a 23-piece orchestra along with a Tanzanian children's choir, guest soloists Kurt Rosenwinkel, who we heard there, Ben Wendell and Niels Landgren. On her first release, it's a mainly instrumental album featuring Fabio on vocals on a couple of tracks, and it's quite audacious debut. She studied guitar, flute and piano before settling on sax, started touring with her first jazz band at the age of 12, has composed for the Metropole Orchestra and played with them at ELB and Jazz Baltica festivals, toured India aged 15, and subsequently Africa, China, North and South America. So at 27, this is a picture of her experiences so far, and frankly, what have we all been wasting our time not doing? But I'm sure we can look out for more from her in the future.
Yeah, great stuff. Nice one to get going. Here we are. It is, yes, New Year. The end of one year, beginning of a new year, depending on which way you want to think of it. But either way, it is New Year and we're going only one direction. That's forward. And the music is always going forward as well. And we've got actually a guest reviewer with us as well today, just to ring the changes, being New Year's Day. As he's known in our house, Mr. Gaylord Jr., but as he's really known, it's Ewan Kneale. You might have heard of his band, Flat Moon. We can't play Flat Moon really because it's not a straight jazz band, is it?
Not jazzy enough,
not
I would
quite
say.
jazzy enough. But we do have a choice of yours today, which will be coming up in a few minutes. What do you think of the starting one then? How did that tickle your fancy?
I quite enjoyed it, very much so, yeah. Something a bit, I tend to listen to the more like quintets, quartets, a little bit smaller, so branching out into something a bit larger is always a good one, interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've been trying to tempt Ewan over to the dark side for some time, with some success. So we're going to carry on. And I know he's got a choice, which will come up in a few moments. One from me now, and again, this one came out in obviously the last year. There's not many trios who could cover the likes of J.S. Bach, Carla Bley, and The Doors, and still do it rather seamlessly, with great taste, and carry it off brilliantly, I would say. Marcin Vasilevsky and his trio do manage it, though. It's amazing to think that it doesn't seem that long ago that they were playing with Thomas Stanko. Thomas, sadly, passed away a couple of years ago, and the band, or the trio, have been together for 30 years. I still thought they were young, but, they've obviously passed the first flush of teenage years. The new one came out En Attendant on ECM in the latter half of 2021, and we'll hear one of the covers from that, yeah. It's The Doors of Riders on the Storm. Lovely version of Riders on the Storm, Marcin Wasilewski trio. You can tell they've been around a long time, and I can almost get my tongue around the names. Marcin Wasilewski on piano, of
it's
course.
Marcin, actually. Hate to bother you.
It's Marcin, not Martin. Marcin, yeah. Marcin Wasilewski. Slavomir Kirkovits on the drums and also, on bass, and Mikla Miskowitz on bass, and they have been together for 30 years. We haven't actually managed to. I did have a chat with him one time. We've never managed to actually interview them. We'll see if we can perhaps put that right in 2022.
We saw them live, of course, with...
several times.
Yeah, but
years.
One of the earlier times was at the Dinant ECM Jazz Festival. And it seems like yesterday, but do you know what year it was? Just off the top of your head?
20 years ago, almost 16 years ago.
2006.
Yeah, I know. It is absolutely terrifying, I must admit, but still sounding really good, still sounding really fresh, really tight and together, but sort of relaxed at the same time, which I really like. Where they'll head next? Well, who knows? They did do, I think, Arctic Riffs it was with Joe Lovano. It would be interesting to see if they'll do some more collaborations, perhaps with another one with Joe or one of the new cats on sax, bring it out into a quartet, so a sax or a trumpeter with the MW trio. Be interesting to see, but wherever it is, I'm sure it'll be terrific. I've really enjoyed their music over the years, right from the very early days, and I still continue to do so. And yes, we also have Ewan here as well. How does that take you? Like the smaller bands?
Yeah, preferred that one. There was definitely some real good playing. If it's okay, I would like to take us on a plane over to Leeds.
Yeah.
There is a band called Viper Time that formed in 2018 and have been in and around the Leeds scene. Since then, they did a really good album in 2019 called Shakedown, and this year, 2021, they brought out an EP called Limbs. And I think I'm going to play the title track from that.
Let's hear it.
That was Limbs by Viper Time, which came out on Hyde Park Book Club Records on the 5th of February 21. We've got Ben Powling on tenor, Matthias Reed on bass guitar, and Luke Redden Williams and Charlie Grimwood both on the drums there. That's 2 drummers in that band.
Do you know any of the guys, or have you bumped?
I've never met any of them, to be honest. I've been trying to catch them live, but they don't actually play in Leeds very often. One of those artists that kind of break their city and then don't play there for a little while, but I'll surely try and catch them over the coming months when I get back across there.
Yeah, great sound. And again, it's that sort of 2 things that sort of jump to my mind. It's one, there is this particularly some of the younger guys and girls coming through, this idea of this sort of Afrobeat with sax over the top, this sort of like an Afrobeat type rhythm. It's almost this idea of getting back to where jazz sort of started, going back, I think, in many ways, and that there's a definite dance vibe to it. People will be up and sort of bopping, or whatever you might do to it, more than, perhaps to Marcin Vasilevsky or something. There's definitely a sort of dance vibe to it. And also I'm thinking of along the lines of The Comet is Coming, Soweto Kinch or something like that, similar sort of vibe.
I think the other thing is there's a lot of relatively free improv. Youngsters come up with dance clubs and other things, and they go with groove-oriented riff-based music. Very, very much put me in mind of Ill Considered. We featured them a number of times before, and their new album, their first studio album after 5 live gigs, is called Liminal Space. I'll be featuring that on a future show. Also, Calculator, London-based improv group we saw, who did have one drummer, but not really a drummer. He had a load of percussion laid out across several tables. Most interesting setup.
Well, great stuff. Viper Time, check him out.
Yeah, check him out. And what can you say about my next choice, except that the leader deservedly topped many of this year's charts. Now aged 83, he started playing jazz clubs back in the 50s, playing with, amongst others, Ornette Coleman, Billy Higgins, Don Cherry, Charlie Hayden, Eric Dolphy and others. Then worked with Chico Hamilton, a quick spell with Mingus, Cannonball Adderley, Jarrett, and then the Beach Boys. Have you guessed who it is yet? Well, we'll go rambling while you think about it. As it rattles away into the background, it was, of course, the inimitable Charles Lloyd with the Marvels, his country-steeped jazz supergroup with Bill Frisell on guitar, a man who we've been lucky enough to see a number of times. In fact, Greg Leish on pedal steel, Reuben Rogers on bass, and Eric Harland at the drums. Like a fine wine, he seems to continue improving with age. Ramblin', taken from the Critics' Choice tone poem. And who are we to disagree?
Oh, well, I certainly wouldn't. I've been a fan for years, and he's sort of almost revitalised himself. He's dropped out of the scene a couple of times. Absolutely flying, of course, in the 60s with his going around the likes, playing all the big festivals, Woodstock and such like, and then dropped out altogether because he just thought he was burnt out. And we did speak to him, quite a few years ago now. And he went out to Big Sur and just went basically meditating for about 4 years out in the mountains.
And then spent over a year with the Beach Boys.
Had to recharge the batteries, man. Had to recharge the batteries. And he was worried about just getting drugged out. And, he probably had a point there from that point of view. And then, of course, he came back again when Michel Petrucciani started playing again. And the first of those albums was actually really laid back, and the older he gets, the more energetic he seems to become again. Euski, how does that tackle you? Does that push your buttons?
I've got tickets to go to Love Supreme Festival down near Brighton in the summer, and Charles Lloyd's there with Frisell, and
we didn't see him. He was playing in London. We didn't see him, so we're a bit envious. We might be able to come and join you. I don't know.
Do it.
Would be all right, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You're listening to Jumpin' In. It is, I sort of said, the end of the last year, beginning of the new year. Of course, it is now 2022, whether we like it or not. I guess Chris and H, special guest Ewan Kneale, joining us as well. Coming over to the dark side, he of Flat Moon. Check out the band Flat Moon if you see them anywhere as well. They're up and down like a fiddler's elbows, they say.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Christian Sands. You're listening to Manx Radio, Jumping In with Chris and H.
terrific stuff. Block from Catherine Windfeld's latest Determination. Catherine Windfeld and the Bohuslän Big Band. And I can't really disagree with what it says in the liner notes. Catherine's become one of the most exciting names on the Scandinavian jazz scene, definitely. I know we featured a couple earlier in the year. You played her earlier in the year. We spoke to it, and that will be coming up early in 2022. Some of the interviews from the LJF 2021. We had a lovely interview with Catherine, and again, top marks to her. She literally came in with her bag straight from Copenhagen into Ronnie Scott's and just said, and they said, the guys are here for the interview. Said, right, no problem. Didn't say, I've got to do this, I've got to unpack, I've got to have a drink. Just came down, sat down in the dressing room with us and went straight into the interview. So yeah, top marks there. Really lovely, fantastic band. She was playing with a sextet, I think it was, wasn't it, at Ronnie's?
Again, that's worth checking out. Couple of albums with a sextet. The
But
one we
really
played
enjoyed that
earlier
one,
in the year
fantastic.
was another one that was highly tipped for the best of the year. And only didn't play it because I had played it recently, which is Orca. Very, very well worth checking out, and her early material as well. And again, just in her early 30s, fantastic, really.
You like the big band sound? You?
Yeah, I think maybe by the end of this, we can have me won
we're
over
working on
by the big band sound.
Converting him. Now, another firm favourite for me at the end of the summer last year is London-based bassist and composer Matt Ridley's third album. Quite a change away from his earlier two, both of which, incidentally, are fantastic and worth digging out. But The Antidote, he had a great new band, slightly more electronic sound. Here's Fallow Blue.
Live, as you might have gathered by the applause, St. Petersburg in Florida. Chick Corea, sadly we lost him in the last 12 months with his long-term acoustic trio. John Patitucci bass, Dave Weckl on the drums. It seems to be able to play any pretty format. I never thought I was a fan, but I do love his playing with the band there. The old, or that old feeling, terrific stuff. Sadly we lost Chick, but so many great recordings.
And before that we had Fallow Blue from Matt Ridley and the Antidote. Well, that's about it for this New Year's Day edition of Jumpin' In. Thanks very much to Euski Brewski for joining us on this special programme.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. And before we go, my last choice is actually from the year before, but was only discovered in 2021 by me, and in fact made it onto many of this year's lists. And it's Joe Darnod's 7 Japanese Tales, inspired by Joe's discovery of Junichiro Tanizaki's identically titled book of short stories. With a great band, Alex Hitchcock on sax, trumpet star James Copas, Will Barry on piano, Rupert Cox on a plethora of analogue synth, and Felix Ambachs on drums, and of course Joe on the bass. Thanks for Ubuntu for selling us that and the Antidote, and we'll see you next week. We'll leave you with Terror.
Lots more in 2022.